Now, how stressed are you? It was revealed this week we spend the equivalent of 5 years of our life worrying. I don't know how they measured that. Apparently, these strains of modern life leave the typical adult losing around 2 hours a day to fretting over the high cost of living, feeling out of shape, and mounting debt. To discuss this, I'm delighted to be joined by Damian Smyth, who's a stress management coach.
Hello.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
So do you think this is right? This piece of research, it hasn't been sourced for me, so I'm not sure who did it, whether it was done by someone reputable or not, but does that sort of ring true to you, that people spend a huge amount of their time worrying about often stuff that never happens?
They do. They spend... Usually, they wake up in the middle of the night, and they spend a lot of time, what I would describe, going... having a merry-go-round go around in their head. So they think about a problem, and then they rethink about the problem, and they rethink about the problem as if it's going to change, as if the merry-go-round is actually going to go somewhere. And so it's very hard to stop doing that, and... A lot of the approaches to dealing with stressful thought or anxious thinking have been a doing approach. They've been a changing your thinking or positive thinking or changing your state. But actually, there's a new approach to dealing with stress and anxious thinking, which is where is the thought coming from in the first place? So it's not what is being created by your thinking, it's what is actually doing the creating. Okay. And in having an understanding about that, it's the same way that if you wanted to fix your car, if I gave you a manual on how to fix your car, it would be quite helpful. So when I essentially give people a manual to the human operating system, it kind of helps them understand that actually it's an inside job. They're the one creating the stress. It's so easy to look at a situation and think that you're feeling the situation. But we're not. We're not feeling the circumstances. We're not even feeling our thinking about the circumstances. We're just feeling our thinking. And if you know where that's coming from, it's kind of like if you're hitting yourself on the head with a frying pan and you suddenly realise that you were the one doing it, you'd stop doing it.
Now, you were trained in neuro-linguistic programming, and we've had NLP practitioners on here. We've talked about cognitive behavioural therapy, which is saying that your thoughts affect your feelings, affect your behaviours. You're sort of trying to move even upstream from those approaches, are you?
Yeah,
because the doing involved in cognitive behavioural therapy and NLP is often quite exhausting. I mean, and you need a certain intellect to be able to understand it. And then to keep doing it can be quite tiring in itself.
Well, it kind of reminds me of the Doctor's Use sketch where you've got a guy who's got a time-saving device and he's trying to give it to this guy who's really busy, and the guy who's really busy is saying, I don't have time for time-saving devices. So if you're really stressed already and someone comes along and gives you something else to do, you're not going to really do that. It's kind of like having a leaky roof and putting a bucket underneath it. You're going to keep having to empty the bucket. If you fix the leaky roof, then you'll stop getting a leaky roof. So
how do you, in simple terms, how do you fix the leaky roof in our minds that's causing, I would say probably an epidemic of stress? I see most people I see, not just in the surgery, have a chronic low-grade anxiety almost gnawing about, and then it goes through waves where people get completely overwhelmed by it. But how do you actually go about turning it round and giving people control over their stress?
So I point people inside. I point people to actually where the source is. They're creating their stressful thinking via a process, essentially, which is and we call them principles. Call them principles in the same way that gravity is a principle in physics. You know, it underpins the workings of the universe. These principles underpin the workings of the human mind. I mean, William James, with the father of modern psychology, said if we could find principles that underpin the workings of the human mind, it would be more important to humanity than the discovery of fire. Well, these principles kind of do that, because essentially what they're saying is we have to be alive to create reality, and that's pretty straightforward. You have to be alive to have a reality. You have to have a thought to create reality. You can't have an experience of anything unless you have a thought about it, and that thought has to be brought to life via your consciousness. You have to have a feeling about it. There's a congenital analgesia. Have you heard of that? Where people don't have the thought about pain and they bite their own tongues off. So you have to have the thought and the feeling to experience reality. Now, that's the process. That's the nature of the human experience. We all have to be alive, conscious and thinking to have that experience. But we're doing it. It's an inside job. So all the feelings that we're getting of anxiety, fear, happiness, joy, all the same. We're creating those from the inside out. So as I said before, it's not the circumstances. It's not even your thinking about the circumstances. It's your thinking. And if people just see that fact, just see that it's coming from the inside out, it's pointing people to the frying pan on the head. It's like, oh, well, why would I carry on doing this? It's shown how the magic trick's done, essentially. So you've got people that have spent years with anxious thinking. I mean, I speak to people I spoke to one person who had 28 years in therapy for
regrading their anxiety for
who had been abused as a child. Now, in the space of 2 hours, she was pointed back to where the experience was being created, and she held all these feelings. She had been keeping them alive through her thinking. The event had finished. It was a long time ago, but she was keeping them alive in her thinking. As soon as she saw she was hitting herself on the head with the frying pan, she went, "Why am I doing this?"
But we see the process of cognitive behavioural therapy, for example, says that people often have automatic negative thoughts. The thoughts that go into their head are necessarily negative ones, and they try and teach you to stamp on them. What are you trying to do? Getting people not to have the negative thoughts in the first place?
No, it's not. It's not about changing your thinking. It's about understanding the process. Now, it's very interesting that thoughts are kind of like waves on the ocean. You know, they're slippery. We can't hold on to a thought forever. We try. And that includes anxious thinking, but we can't. And to the degree that we splash around in the waves of our thinking, the more energy we put into it, the worse it gets. So we get anxious thinking, we get in there with it. If we just know that another thought will eventually come along to replace it, it might be worse, the first one, but it will change. Thoughts are like weather systems, you know, they will change. And there's nothing to do, because as soon as you tell people to go down the route of doing, you've got to change your thinking, got to make it positive. What happens when that doesn't work? They're down into a downward spiral. When they just know that there's nothing to change, that eventually it will change on its own, it's kind of like we're holding a beach ball underwater. Our natural mental health is holding a beach ball underwater. There's nothing to do for it to rise to the surface. You just let go of it, which is why my book's called Do Nothing.
Some people seem to do that intuitively, don't they? Some people just go, "Oh, stuff it," or whatever will be, and they just don't. They seem to get completely unfazed by anything.
And isn't that interesting?
Really chilled, and it'd be really interesting to know how they do that, or whether that's the way their brain is hardwired, or...
Well, I think we're always one thought away from our mental health, and it's the more we try to get to it, we're pointing again. That's why we're pointing in the wrong direction. There's nothing to do to get to it. We just have to kind of take our foot off the gas to slow down.
Now, the slightly anal doctor in me says that your book, Do Nothing, which you very kindly give me a signed copy of, should there be references in the back to show that this approach has been shown to work in randomised controlled trials? Is there any evidence that this... I mean, it sounds intuitively sensible to me, but has it been tried in research to work?
It has been incredibly successful in the US penal system.
Okay.
So they've gone into prisons where there are lifers, where these people will never get out. And they have realised that the prison bars are actually in their mind, and they're saying that they're the happiest they've ever been, and they want the warders to then go through the same training, because they're saying they keep bringing their problems into the prison.
The warders now. That's really interesting, isn't it?
And it's been, and BAE systems have their own 3 principles division, so it's been used in business very successfully.
Okay.
I guess the one thing to sort of mention here is it's there's no process involved. People get it at their own pace, so you kind of have to insightfully see it for yourself. As soon as you see it's an inside job, the penny drops.
Okay. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Damian Smyth, author of Do Nothing, Stop Looking, Start Living, The Simple Way to a Fantastic Life. I shall read it and get back to you. And then maybe when I've had a chance to digest it, you could come and talk to us again.
It'd be my pleasure.
It's really good. Thank you so much. Damian Smyth, author of Do Nothing, Stop Looking, Start Living.